You know, it's funny. When Pokemon Black and White 2 were announced a while back, there was widespread vocal outrage directed at Nintendo and GameFreak because the games were announced for Nintendo DS instead of Nintendo 3DS. Now, everyone who owns Nintendo 3DS could also play Pokemon Black and White 2 on their 3DS, and there are even special benefits for playing it on 3DS. And with Pokemon Dream Radar and all of that, which were 3DS exclusive. But there was people were like, "Oh, they've screwed over 3DS owners. They're ignoring their new system. This is the dumbest decision GameFreak and Nintendo could make, and I'm so angry, and this is such a missed opportunity, and this would be so much better on 3DS." And it's like, and I made a whole video. I was like, guys, calm down. First off, this is obviously they planned Black and White 2, and we're making Black and White 2 at the same time they're making the first Pokemon Black and White. Second, they're obviously doing this as in between for the in between period between Pokemon like Black and White and the actual next generation for the Nintendo 3DS. And people, I said this, I explained this, and people were still like, "Oh, it's still stupid," and Black and White 2 should have been for 3DS, and they're screwing over 3DS owners, and DS owners should suck it up and upgrade for 3DS like everyone else. And I was like, all right, fine, just let them be mad. And then Pokemon Black and White 2 came out, and it was fine, and everything was okay. And now, I cannot. It just blows my mind because now Pokemon X and Y have been announced for Nintendo 3DS, and I'm seeing lots of people. I mean, lots. I've seen several dozen people. I've seen whole communities of people where there's widespread anger at Nintendo and Game Freak for making Pokemon X and Y Nintendo 3DS exclusive, saying, "Oh, it should have been for Nintendo DS," or they're screwing over their whole DS user base, and they're being greedy, and they're screwing us over and forcing us to buy a new system. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. You cannot be serious. There are only two real reasons I can imagine that why someone would be mad at Nintendo and Game Freak for Pokemon X and Y being for 3DS instead of Nintendo DS. Now, before I get into that, Nintendo DS turns 9 years old this year. Yeah, Nintendo DS turns 9 years old this year. Next year, in 2014, Nintendo DS will be a decade old. Okay, in 2001, the Super Nintendo was a decade old. In 2012, the GameCube was a decade old. Nintendo DS will be a decade old next year. All right, and that being said, it's incredible. Like they could, if they were really out to screw their customers over and milk people for money, they could have taken Pokemon Black and White 2, stuck on the crappiest 3D imaginable. They just tack on some crappy 3D effects, put it on, make it a Nintendo 3DS exclusive, and say, "Aha! Now you all have to upgrade." I mean, they could have did that. I mean, they could have did that if Nintendo and Game Freak, if they had put Pokemon Black and White 2, made it 3DS exclusive, just tacking on some crappy extra features and saying, "Oh, it's a 3DS exclusive," they could have easily sold 5 or 6 million extra 3DS systems than what they've sold right now. But they didn't. They made it so that everyone could play. They made it so that all the people who just got Nintendo DS the year before, they were still selling Nintendo DS the holiday season before as a major system. So many little kids out there, and Pokemon is a kids game. The target audience, the prime demographic is little kids. All right, and a lot of those people are still on Nintendo DS and Nintendo DSi. Okay, so they made it so as many people as possible could play it, and they made it so that if you have a 3DS, you get extra benefits that aren't necessary to play the game, but just make it a little more fun. And that they did that when they didn't have to. They could have easily made it for 3DS exclusive, and now 3DS has been out for a couple of years now. I think it turns 2 this year, and now it's time to move on. It's time for the next generation. It's time to see what a new system with more powerful hardware could offer to make this a better game. Because obviously, if each game isn't unique from the last in some way, there's not a point in making another game. You could just keep playing the old one. And so they're coming out with it for 3DS. The new Pokemon X and Y are going to be 3DS exclusive, and the only reasons I can imagine, the only sensible reasons I could fathom why someone would be mad at Nintendo and Game Freak saying, "Oh, they've screwed me because now they're trying to make me buy a 3DS," or they've screwed their Nintendo DS owners, or like the only reasons I could think of why someone would think that is either A, because what I have to realize now is that okay, like you could have got like someone could have gotten a Nintendo DS when they were maybe 6 or 7 back in 2004 for Christmas, and they could be young teenagers now, and like maybe even like going into high school. That's how long Nintendo DS has been out, and if that's the case, and they're still on DS, then this is the first time they've ever had to upgrade their system in order to play a major game. This is the first like sort of generation shift, so maybe just upgrading your system is a new idea to them. Either that or their people were just so like they're just accustomed to the rampant piracy on Nintendo DS. They're fully functional Nintendo DS emulators. You can just download the ROM of like Pokemon of any game you want pretty much. And there's all kinds of like flashcards and stuff that they aren't used exclusively for piracy, but a lot of people use them mainly for piracy. And you could download basically any game you want and put it on your Nintendo DS and play it just like you went to the store and bought the actual game cartridge. Like those are the and they're just mad because there's no fully functional 3DS emulator. There's not 3DS has basically just been cracked, but there's no rampant piracy like on the DS right now. And they're just mad because now they actually might have to buy the games to play them, and on day one. Those are the only reasons I could think of that people are upset that Pokemon X and Y would be 3DS exclusive. Because honestly, I'm just saying this completely frankly, I have not seen so many people outraged or upset at the fact of a new system coming out and new games only coming out for the new system. I have not seen people so alienated by that concept since when the Super Nintendo came out and people's parents were like, "Oh, well, why do I have to buy a Super Nintendo? The Nintendo we already bought still works just fine. Why do we have to buy a new one? They're ripping us off. They're planned obsolescence, whatever." And back when people weren't used to the idea of buying a new game system every 4 or 5 years, only this time Nintendo DS has been out 8 years, 9 by the time Pokemon X and Y are going to be out. By the time Pokemon X and Y come out, Nintendo DS will be within a month of turning 9 years old. Okay, it's time for a new system. I still play Nintendo DS, but it's like, come on, it's time for a new system. GameFreak and Nintendo certainly don't owe you to put to keep supporting old systems when they've already gone out of their way to do that with major titles like Pokemon Black and White 2 that they could have easily just slapped on the 3DS and said, yeah, we made these for DS, and they're obviously DS games that don't take advantage of the new hardware, but we're going to put it on 3DS just to make you buy a 3DS system. And they could have easily sold they would have sold easily maybe 5 million more 3DS systems than they have right now by doing that, and they haven't. So, yeah. It is... It's just really crazy. People on the internet are so silly sometimes. Alright, that's it for now. Thanks for watching.